And more arrests.
and consequently more prosecutions, which creates more jail time.
But we're going to have to clean up the riffraff in order to get,
I agree.
you know, our whole.
On this, if there is no budgetary reason why jail care is a separate account, why don't we put it right under the sheriff where everybody can see it?
It is a different account.
It is a different
It's
account?
jail care is a total
Okay,
different
all
fund
right.
line.
I didn't know.
It's
Say-
in the general.
Well, yeah, I knew it was in the general.
That sheriff, that
He's gonna go
100,
over.
that is indicative, the 100 behind the sheriff, that is indicative to the sheriff. That is their fund line. The
Okay.
jail care fund line is 130.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
so-
jail care is 130.
So they are two, they're both in the general fund, but they're two separate funds.
Okay, all right.
All right, Deb, if you want to go,
I can go.
either that or we can get Natalie in and.
Yeah, I can do mine real
Okay.
quickly. As far as, we'll do the clerk's budget first. I did not give raises. I did take the Austin Peters, as far as personnel is concerned, I did take the Austin Peters into consideration because that was the decision of the board at the last meeting. And so the only other raise that I gave was that 2% CPI index. And so I figured that, and then I did not give raises. You know, for as long as this tax lid is in effect, I moved those three positions up to the minimum, and then I figured a 2% CPI, and that's all I figured.
Okay.
So that's pretty bare bones. The contractual services on the second sheet in there, and I apologize, I kind of ran out a little bit of time here also. I had a lot of interruptions. The personnel services, that kind of explains it, what was projected in 2016 and based on the Austin Peters, where we're at and how I got that figure. Under the contractual services, these are the meetings and or trainings that I've been going to. And I didn't get that CIC symposium that Jeannie was talking to. I didn't get that figure in there. But I've tried to take those into consideration. The one big thing that I really want to attend next year is the Sanborn Institute. And this is a 3-year training for county clerks. And they only do it every 4 years.
Same as.
Kind of like Jeannie's, only Jeannie's is once.
Yeah.
This for county clerks is every year. You go to year 1 and year 2 you build on it, and year 3 you build on it. And I tried to get into it 2 years ago, but they were already into year 2, and they said, no, you don't want to jump in midstream. The best thing to do is to wait and come then. And the gal that organizes it, I asked her, I said, what roughly does it cost? And that's what she said. And that includes the registration, the mileage, the lodging, everything on that. And so those are some major contractual costs. Other than that, I figured what are the reports that I run for each of the departments. I figured what it was costing a month to run it as far as the phone service and all that. I just kind of averaged it and then did a little bit of increase for the tax lid, because if we don't budget for it this year, in 2018 it isn't going to be there without a vote of the people. Commodities, just because commodities, the biggest thing we have in commodities is like our toners. Right now they're running us $400 a piece to replace those toners in that machine. And that's probably going to increase. But I just replaced both of these, and they're about 25,000 copies per toner. So we get a lot of mileage out of them, but when we have to replace them, they're very expensive also. Paper is running us about $50 a case right now, and that's what I figured was $50 a case, but that could go up also. The other thing that is the color cartridges for our color printer. They're about $30 a pop, and that's kind of, I think it's expensive. But we print a lot. A lot of departments don't have a color copier, and they use ours, so it's nice to have at least one in the courthouse. So I only raised my commodities a little bit just for the increase of these kinds of things. And then for equipment reserve and capital outlay, I budgeted just a little bit for that. The computer that I'm using is probably the oldest one out of those three, and probably it's on its last leg, and it's going to have to be replaced. So I set aside a little bit of money for that, and set aside a little bit of money for printers. Just preparing, it might not happen next year, but if I don't set the money aside, it might be there a couple of years down the road. So, do you have any questions on this one?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Okay.
Do you want to get Natalie in here?
Can I do election real quick, like?
Oh, okay, yeah.
I do have, that's the one that concerns me a lot. It did go up drastically, but I had to, the big increases in this is preparing for an election. Should we have to go to a vote of the people to increase the tax lid, it has to be by an election. And it has to be a mail ballot. The legislature has said it will be a mail ballot election. We won't go to the poll and vote. You will get your ballot in the mail.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah. So I asked at our clerk's meeting, the counties that were similar size to Cheyenne County, I said, we've never done a mail ballot election. Roughly what do they cost? And they said roughly $5,000. So I've added that in here, and I've also added the cost of the transfer to equipment reserve for the new election equipment. I got by this year without upgrading them. Hopefully I can get by next year without upgrading them, but I'm guessing by 2018 they're going to tell me they won't support these auto marks anymore. So I'm going to have, and I'm ballpark, it's probably going to be $40,000 to $50,000 to get new auto marks. That includes the auto mark, the service agreements, the contracts that go with them. The machine itself is probably roughly $10,000.
Mm-hmm.
And
So you need to start budgeting next year for the following year.
I got to get some money built up somewhere. You were gracious enough to let me carry over a little bit that was not used in election. But if we don't set it aside, then when we have to have it, it will not be there. Like I said, I'm going to make these auto marks go as long as they possibly can because they're not used that much. But state law requires elections to be ADA compliant. And that's all that machine does, is make us ADA compliant. They're used minimally, but yet we have to have them. So this was a tough one. This was a tough one. So here again, a little bit of increase in the commodities. We tried to do our own printing of poll books and that kind of thing in-house, so we don't have to pay for that kind of stuff. But there are some forms, some of those triplicate forms that we have to get from Lockwood, and as well as our election tokens. They're going to go up. They went up this year, and the Secretary of State said you can count on them going up next year and the year after. It's just inevitable. The first year that we had the election equipment, we had HAVA money to pay for those, and so none of the counties had to pay for their equipment. It was all paid with HAVA money. Well, we don't have any HAVA money left.
I was just going to say, we can't expect anything out of the state.
Well, it's been
with
spent.
Yeah.
You know, that HAVA money was spent the first go around to get all of this electronic equipment. we don't have it anymore, so the counties are having to pay for it themselves, and it's quite expensive. So, you know, I changed that $15,000 figure. First I had it 10, then I had it 15, and then I cut it back to 10. And I'm like, okay, if I don't have that money, if I only budget 10 and I only have 10,000 in there, and I have to get the equipment, that money won't be there. The other little variable that I'm kind of playing around with is only getting 2 machines. Right now, we kind of use 3 machines so that we have a backup. One of them is used for advanced voting, and then one goes up to the church in St. Francis and one to the church in Bird City. We might be able to get by with 2 machines rather than 3. But here again, we're going to have to set the money aside. Otherwise, we won't even have it for 2 machines. So that's a tough one. That's a tough call. So other than that, that's all I have.
Thank you. Let's get Natalie in, and
Okay.
Scott, did you have something? Okay.
Unless you want to give me some money.
Oh, hers is pretty straightforward.
I think Dan's headed on too.
Okay.
She is going to, she must be with a customer. So. Did Eric go over Cody's budget or just give it to you?
We just got it in jail care.
And we can get a hold of Dan. When Dan brought in these fire department budgets, I told him that we had some cancellations. He doesn't get off work until 4:30, but he said, call me when you're ready, and he said if I can get away, I
He's on his
will.
way up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, is he? Okay.
Hi,
Hi,
Natalie.
guys.
Well, that was quick.
Yeah, it was good timing. Have you guys had a chance to look at my stuff?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any questions for me?
No, you straight lined your budget. We like you.
You do? Yay! Well, I tried to explain it in that little comment section, kind of what I was thinking with replacing computers, and the recording software makes me nervous. It's getting pretty old, so.
That's in the courtroom?
Yep.
Yeah, I talked to you last year about that.
Yep. So that's kind of what I'm thinking anyway.
And Natalie had sent that letter. I also copied that
Yeah, that
memorandum
memo.
letter. Yeah. And put in each one of yours.
It basically says the same thing, just a little more detail, I think.
So you have been budgeting in the courthouse general fund for future needs for that courtroom? Is that where that?
Because her budget is in the county general.
Okay.
Okay.
We don't pay her, the state pays her.
Yeah, I know that.
But the rest of her budget is
Yes.
budgeted through county funds.
Right.
I think we're in good shape. The judge just got a new computer this year, so the new judge will be set, and he got a new printer.
Okay.
And so that office should be in pretty good shape, but our equipment will just be time to upgrade.
Natalie, you don't have anything on here for commodities. Are we missing something? What did you budget for commodities?
For last year?
Is this what you're looking at? This is the attorney's
Oh,
fees
that's
one.
attorney
That's
fees.
that's a different one. Yep.
Hang on a second.
the commodities I should have,
There we go. There we go. I got it. Budget, sorry.
and we do have several jury trials scheduled, but that doesn't mean they're going to happen, of course. But summonses and postage and all that kind of stuff, envelopes and things will, if Nicole continues to do a good job like she has been, we could be busy.
She's going to keep you busy, I can
Yeah.
tell you right now.
Yep. So,
What do we have? 3 cases, major ones scheduled for next year?
and so then I'm also responsible for that court-appointed attorney's fees budget that Nicole signed off with me. We just estimated about $20,000 for court appointments. Those seem to be raising each year too, so.
Do you guys have any questions?
Okay.
No. The only question I would have would be mileage, and we aren't going to get any figures on that for months. And I think it'll increase
Yeah.
for travel.
Most of my mileage comes through the county. I do have one state meeting that I go to each year that the state pays for my lodging
Yeah.
and mileage, but kind of share the burden. So, I guess we'll just leave it in your guys' hands. You're not making any final decisions or
No,
anything
no.
today, right?
No, we're going
So-
to look through
Okay,
it.
so
Yeah.
you've been programming for equipment needs, and at the end of this year, you'll have 6,000 in your account. That's good.
Yep.
That's good. You're ahead of the game for some of the people.
Well, I know that recording software, last time they purchased it, I think it was around 9,000. So at least we've got something
And
to
then
work with.
you can bet your bottom dollar that it's escalated percentage-wise quite a bit since then,
Right. So,
quite a bit. Probably double,
yeah.
because it's a special type of software.
Yeah. Yeah, with the speakers and the recording software and everything. So. Okay.
Thank you, Natalie.
You're welcome. If
Yeah.
you guys have any questions later, just holler. Okay? Thank you.
Dan, you're up.
Good morning.
Afternoon,
Morning?
whatever it is.
Good afternoon, yeah. I'm still on my morning schedule,
Yeah.
as you obviously are aware.
Well, I don't really have a whole lot to say about it. I put this in just for St. Francis, in case you guys do split it up. you don't split it up, I say it's closer to this, but I don't know that without talking to Lauren.
Okay.
Because I don't know what Lauren's needs are, so I just threw a guess out there off of what passed.
I told him to get you some paperwork.
I think she's sending the stuff too.
I've reached out to Lauren, and I even called him today to ask him if he was going to be here, and he didn't have any numbers for me, or he wasn't planning on attending, and he quite
I do
frankly
know
just-
he's busy.
he didn't know. So
And the number I come up with for total budget request does not include the grant expense added into that.
So for the St. Francis Fire Department, you're projecting overall increase of $1,000 for next year.
But that doesn't include the grant expenses, right?
Right.
So we need to add the 23.5 to
Right.
that. Okay.
Which last year I think it was with the grant expenses was 105.
Pardon?
Last year I think with the grant expenses in there it was 105 something.
Or 106.5.
And that was for everything last year. Because it was the same. So I guess I don't know what your plans are. If your plans are to keep it together and you want me to figure the budget, I'm gonna have to go talk to Lauren before I can give you an exact. I threw a rough draft together basically.
Okay.
Now the grant expenses, that 23.5.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I talked to Carol and she said it would be easier just to put it in my budget, even if you separate the budgets.
Okay.
And it would just come out of my budget even if Bird City applies for a grant. Come out of that grant expense.
So you want that added to this?
it needs to be added.
Yeah, that 23.5 would be added to it because that's a grant expense. I didn't add them.
Yeah.
in, but-
You wanted to discuss it.
And I think that's what Dolores was talking about when the auditor was here last time, was to budget for it. Each department would budget for their grant fund needs in their department. Then when we expense it, it will be expensed out of grants.
Out of the department, and you can see the transaction right
Right.
there.
And then she will do a journal entry to transfer out of the department into grants to cover that amount. And that way, there's a good paper trail.
Okay, on your budget, what is you have a total capital outlay of 11,000. What is that figure for?
No, I figured that for like, if we had to buy big flashlights and stuff like that. Because our flashlights are about $200 a piece.
Wouldn't that come out of commodities?
Like you could go either place with it.
Either place.
Huh?
Either place.
Either place? Okay.
Commodities are more day-to-day consumable items, where a capital outlay would be a major purchase, and your flashlights would definitely
Flashlights,
show up
yeah.
on your inventory list then.
Right.
Batteries would come out of commodities, but the flashlight would come out of capital.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say the original purchase of the flashlights, since they're that expensive, that would be correct. But any batteries would be.
We've been looking at some lights for the trucks too. I figured I'd put that in there. Just- And like I said, just because that 11's there doesn't mean I have to spend it all.
That's right.
But it doesn't hurt to have it.
So if we
Better
look
to be
at both
figured for it than
departments,
not.
we go over to the next one.
Yeah, that, like I said, that would be a rough guess. I haven't actually spoke with Lauren.
Yeah.
That's just figured off.
He
of-
doesn't want nothing big that you know of. He hadn't said.
No, I haven't talked to Lauren for a while now, so.
I think we need to appoint a fire marshal to oversee this snarling mess here. What do you guys think? Think it over. Think it over. Because really, most of the problem is coordinating the finances between the two fire stations. I mean, we only have one county fire department.
And timely submission of payroll and timely submission of accounts payable needs to be considered. We had issues with fire department payroll, not St. Francis, but
Does that surprise you, John?
there were 2 new volunteer fire
I'm not in
department that
this
didn't
one.
get paid
It's
because the
good.
paperwork wasn't done, and we didn't know that they had added 2 new fire department people until payroll came in, and then it was too late to get them paid. But there's just lots of concerns, issues. My vote would be for a fire marshal.
If we paid our payroll the way we discussed with 2-week payments and being 2 weeks behind always, that wouldn't have been an issue.
Well, fire department is a little different. They're only paid twice a year, in June and
But-
December.
Still, I mean, I think that would have alleviated that too.
I would hope it would. Yeah.
I believe I read someplace the city of St. Francis is giving you a small stipend for your headache.
Yeah, I don't know. What it
Does
is.
Bird City give you anything?
Me? No. I'm not the Bird City chief. So.
I know. Does Bird City give their chief anything?
I have no idea.
I checked on it. No, it's $180 for Dan.
So,
It's $80 extra in June and $80 extra that the city, Dan gets paid for his meetings and everything just like everybody else does. But then for the fire chief, he gets an additional $80 in June and $80 in December. The city of Bird City does nothing for the fire chief over there. But
That's why you can't
That's the
expect
answer.
him to get nothing done. He ain't getting nothing out of
Why
it.
don't you go to their meeting and pound on the desk with your shoe?
Hanging
I think
on
that
the
is
speed.
something that is a valid issue to discuss here at budget time, is maybe
Yeah,
creating
later
a
in the
fire
budget
marshal
thing. And
position.
before we leave today, we're going to have to establish a couple of dates for future budget meetings. I can see it's going to be lengthy. Okay, so this would be the combined total plus 23.5
correct.
for the two departments.
And that's hoping nothing goes wrong, major wrong.
I might tailor this spreadsheet. This is a generic spreadsheet. I might tailor it more for the fire department and just put, like under commodities, add a line for grants, since that money will be budgeted in your budget. Because right now, this spreadsheet really doesn't identify that need.
I think that's a good idea.
But tailor it a little bit more to the fire department rather than just a generic
Yeah.
form.
I'm going to just draw a line as a reminder to myself on this.
Just put it there under commodities there and put grant expenses or grant,
Oh,
grant
under
expenses.
commodities, okay.
Mhm. And then over in that requested column, put the 23,000 over there. And then you'd have to adjust your total at the bottom.
Yeah,
I'm still new at this, so we'll see how close we come.
now if you guys notice on a county budget, I think it's page 18 or 18A, fire departments are separated on how they compute the needs and the taxes for fire. So just to kind of keep that in mind when you look at a budget, past budgets or in the future budgets, you'll see it's broke out separate.
Anything else? Any questions? Okay, thank you, Danny.
Well, we ain't got no attorney and no road guy, so I think we're done.
Okay. Rodney, did you have anything else?
Just, we need to set dates, and then are we going to wait any longer for the sheriff? What do you want to do there?
No, he said he wasn't gonna make it.
Wasn't going to make it?
No,
Make it.
Okay.
And I ain't waiting.
he said he might make it by 4:15, but he
Yeah.
might make it now.
This day was pretty much set for the departments. The next budget meeting, I thought maybe it would be good to address those appropriations that are allotted and,
Oh, in the other department?
right, in others. Mila Bandel called and you know, she was going to come in and talk. We talked about the airport. What was the other one, Rodney, that you mentioned? Airport and
Fairboard.
Fairboard was the other
Yeah,
one.
they're under that.
To have them attend and kind of let you know what they're planning
Yeah, we
next
don't
year.
want no busted noses.
So you know how to budget for the appropriations.
Okay.
But when you want to do it, you will need to set a time. And oh, I did have one other thing. That Mid-Continent gentleman that Dolores was talking about on filming and digitizing our records. Most of the records in the county clerk's office were digitized or have been microfilmed, not digitized. They're in the salt mines down in Hutch is where they're at, and we pay a rental for those to be down there. That's part of our contractual line items. But we do have some books that are not digitized. Those, I think it was about $225. And I told the gentleman, I said, I did not budget for this, but in putting this together, I think I can pay for it out of the clerk's tech fund, that those fees, because
Oh,
those.
that new fund of yours?
That new fund, I believe record preservation is one of the expenses that can be paid out of that. So I might look at taking that out of there. But we also got to talking about the blueprints for the building. And I went downstairs and I got up all the blueprints, and that gentleman looked at them and he said, yes, they definitely needed to be scanned. And Ed happened to be in the courthouse.
They're ancient. I told her I wouldn't even move them out of here, just let them come here and do it.
It is a little bit more expensive for them to come on site, but he said what they would do is they would lay it down. They would lay the map down on the floor, and there's a scanner that goes across it. You don't put the map through it. Some of the maps are not in really good condition. The edges are frayed, but that way they would be put on microfilm, and they would also be digitized. And then he said you can put them in a sleeve. And so I believe he's not on, well, not Thursday's meeting, but the middle of June. He's on that.
Middle of July.
Pardon?
Middle of July,
Yes.
He's supposed to have a quote done.
Yes. To go off-site, they were about $11.95 a map. To come on-site, he said probably $16.95 to $17.95 to scan them here. He's going to bring some different kinds of sleeves for you guys to look at. He said they're $4.95, $5.95. But he said his suggestion was that after these maps are scanned, that you put them in one of these laminate sleeves, and then they're laid flat. Because right now they're rolled. They're downstairs and they're in a heavy brown bag, which is good. I mean, they're dust free and they're not exposed to the sunlight or anything. But these are blueprints for the building and the county shop. I think it's important to preserve those. So, not sure where you want to fund those. So, I didn't know whether to talk about that today or Thursday. So, you have kind of what there is. And that's what we were to get some figures together, and Carol was possibly thinking about looking for a grant between the clerk's office, the treasurer's office, and the register of deeds, the different needs that we had in getting everything digitized, so she could have a dollar amount for a grant.
Okay.
On the sheriff's budget, I think we need to ask him about his special, what is that called, his trust fund or whatever it was we created.
Right.
That should be identified under fees or revenue provided to a department.
In,
And I'm sure it's just an oversight. I mean, it's a new,
right.
but I happen to know he's got about 100,000 in it.
Yeah, he spent some out of it.
Let the druggies pay for our law enforcement.
Wouldn't hurt, wouldn't make me upset.
Am I bloodthirsty?
That's a pretty nice little machine, you see it?
What's that?
That new machine that Cody bought.
That side by side.
And he got a trailer. He parks across the street from me so I can use it.
Why don't you ask him if he would consider transferring those two vehicles over to that fund? That'd free up his finances for the rest of the year.
I think that's what he intended on doing, wasn't he?
Well, he may have, and just hasn't had time to get around to it.
I don't know.
You give me that puncher, or I'll just let you punch this for me, thank you.
What you need there.
So,
Sits you at these all the time.
Okay.
yeah.
All right, well, let's set the next meeting up after our next meeting.
Okay, that'll work for you, Rodney.
Pardon?
We'll make the next meeting.
After our meeting on Thursday, we'll figure out when we're having more budget meetings. That way we can get some more of this straightened out first.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Because that'll give we can release it to the paper
Oh,
and
okay.
everything else.
To get your packets.
Yes. And then if you can copy these so I can take them back.
I wanted to send you packets.
I'll do a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn?
Yeah. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.